Coach Keeler and the Temple Owls brought the boogie down south.
Dancing in the rain, or maybe the 10th and Diamond Disco. Your pick. Either way, another road win, but this one took extra time.
I'm Haley Smith, live at Edgar Golson Hall. With that win, the Owls are one step closer to a bowl game. The Owls haven't been bowling since 2019.
I'm Miles Thurston at the studio set. Later in the show, I'll take you through a thrilling game between the two top dogs in the American, along with my players of the week. Inside the Nest is live and starts right now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Nest, right here in TV Studio 3. As always, I'm Pat Tallahan and he's Xavier Adams.
A Temple team that couldn't win on the road for years just keeps winning on the road. This time against the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. It was a thriller that needed some extra minutes to settle, with the Owls coming out on top. Kicking things off at Chapman Stadium with the 2-1-5 traveling to the 9-1-8. This Temple team held a 1-5 all-time record in the state of Oklahoma prior to the game. Starting with the ball, Temple down 3-0. Simon drops back and hits Kajaya Holloway, his #1 option, on a nasty back shoulder throw. It's a 24-yard touchdown catch, an early start to a monster game for Holloway. Second quarter now, Owls up 7-3. Offense gives the ball to Jay Ducker, who just explodes through the middle of the field thanks to some great blocks. He's throwing around hit sticks and stiff arms and finally goes down after a strong 27-yard rush. Same drive now at the goal line. Simon's under center. He fakes it, rolls left, and hits Jay Ducker for the easy touchdown. Ducker has the Owls quacking and now up 14-3. Later in the second quarter, Tulsa gets crafty in the red zone. Brody Foley at quarterback lowers the shoulder on Eric Stewart and gets Tulsa within 4 points. End of the first half, Tulsa back in scoring position already. Baylor Hayes takes the snap and has Owls in his grill, but floats it down to, again, Brody Foley, who shows some toe drag swag on the 8-yard touchdown catch. First half ends, Owls down 3.
On to the second half, where the Owls wasted no time in finding their way back in the lead. Simon finds Jay Ducker over the middle for his second touchdown of the game. Look at him flap those wings in the end zone, Xavier. We saw Baylor Hayes make a ridiculous throw to end the second half, and he makes another here to put the Golden Hurricane in front. He dances in the pocket and hits Grayson Tempst in the corner for a touchdown. Tulsa leads Temple by 3, but not for much longer. How many times have we heard and seen these two connect? Evan Simon hits Kajaya Holloway in the end zone for his second of 3 scores on the day. And just like that, the Owls retake the lead. We'll jump to the fourth. Tulsa on the Owls' 1-yard line. Spencer Kettleman hands it off to Dominic Richardson for the game-tying score. After 60 minutes and 7 lead changes, Temple and Tulsa find themselves knotted at 31. So we mentioned that they needed extra time. We're tied up, and this was Temple's first OT game since last season at the Link against FAU.
Yeah, Pat and I decided to break down the final highlights from the dramatic overtime finish. So to start things off, Temple gets the ball first when overtime kicks off. We're going to see a footage a little bit here in a moment. They get the ball first here, and Evan Simon just takes the play fake, rolls right, and just Kobe's this to Kajaya Holloway off the back foot, Pat. That's his 3rd touchdown of the game. Now the Owls elect to only kick a field goal here and not go up by 2.
Tulsa's turn. It's Baylor Hayes again, and it's Brody Foley again. Another unbelievable throw by Baylor Hayes. It felt like we were seeing him making a great throw every time he touched the ball.
Yeah, and it was pretty much every time to Brody Foley, it feels like. But we're going to see Brody Foley yet again on the 2-point conversion try. They put him in at quarterback again. They've been trying to set this play up all game long. They've hit him at quarterback multiple times. He floats the little overhand shovel pass, and it doesn't go because of the pressure from Demarick Moore. Look at that. Gets in his grill. Demarick Moore forces
Tim Tebow action there.
Forces the breakup. Tulsa goes down 37-38 in OT.
Saturday was a huge day for quarterback play on both sides. We'll start with Baylor Hayes, who threw for 296 yards and 3 touchdowns, a season high for him in both categories. For Evan Simon, it was another landmark day. The newest member of the Manning Award watch list threw for 5 touchdowns on Saturday, good for his 2nd highest mark of the season. It was also a big day for Kajaya Holloway. His 85 yards was a team high for the Owls, along with his season high three touchdowns. But even with Simon and Holloway's huge days, the Owls barely won this one. Coach Keeler and company still think that there is more room for this team to grow.
Disappointed on the 5 tries and get in the end zone from the 1.5 yard line, and we didn't do it. Kind of gutsy to go there at the end, but I just felt like, we gotta prove something. We gotta see if we can get that yard.
Not gonna go out there and play a football game and expect it to be a way. You're gonna have some adversity. Coach Keeler talked about adversity and just pushing through, and just the work we put in, and the things that we did throughout the summer and the spring and all the workouts and everything, it just paid off until the last play of the game. So, that's a great team win, and we're all together on it. So,
Evan is like the perfect quarterback for this offense because he's so accurate. Thought we protected him pretty well, and a couple times he had to hang in there, with some pressure. But all in all, I thought Tulsa was a much better football team than that 2-6 record shows.
You look at the end of the game, we shouldn't have been in that situation if we punch it in. But one of those games where, you flip a coin and culture wins. So, proud of this football team. So I noticed they were going for 2 last second as a big dude was taking the snap. And right away, you're just listening to the crowd. And I don't really know what happened there, but you'll wait.
It would mean a lot. Kind of just being here last couple of years, I've never been to a bowl game, so it's truly a good blessing to have 5 wins. I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful for how the guys around me in order to have these wins. So it's a good feeling, but we got to get back to work. So we can't celebrate too long, as Coach Keeler say, and we just got to move on to the next day.
It feels as though every week Temple football is breaking old records and setting new standards. With last weekend's firing of LSU's Brian Kelly, Coach Keeler holds a new distinction. Keeler is now the winningest active head coach in all of college football. Yes, all of college football. Keeler, who himself has 276 wins, is one of 6 coaches in all levels of college football to have more than 200 wins. So, Xavier, we've talked about the offense a lot this week, and we watched the game together this weekend, as we have pretty much every weekend.
Sure did.
You had a lot of displeasure with the offense's goal-to-go play calling, specifically at the end of the first half. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
I've had a lot of displeasure just with the red zone play calling, to be specific. I think there's a lot of interesting decisions that they've just been making. We saw at the end of the first half against Tulsa, they tried 4 runs in a row with running back Hunter Smith. That's a 180-pound running back, while Jay Ducker just sits on the sideline. Now, I know there's no specific conspiracy as to why Jay Ducker was on the sideline, but in that scenario, he needs to be on the field if you're going to run the ball. But I think Temple offense has obviously been the most effective at throwing the football. Not once did they try a pass attempt in that red zone at the end of the second half. And when you're just out there leaving points on the board, it makes it very frustrating when your defense is already struggling. You're just making it that much harder for your team to really get in this thing when you're going out there just leaving points at the 1 yard line at that.
Yeah, you talked about leaving points on the board, though, and I feel like when you kick a field goal in that situation, you're surrendering those extra points. You know that your defense is struggling. They haven't been very good all year. Let's be honest. Let's look at the stats. They haven't been great. So when you are on the 1 yard line, when you're inside the 5 yard line, I personally do not believe in the philosophy that taking 3 there is acceptable. Now, I do agree that running the ball 4 times isn't the right play call either. But at the same time, when your defense is struggling, we saw it at the end of the Navy game, and this perhaps provides an explanation for why they scored so early. It's clear that they just don't trust the defense. To me, that's my big takeaway from it. They don't trust the defense. And that's why you see them being ultra aggressive in these goal-to-go situations in 4th and goal right on the 1 yard line. Now, the running the ball 4 times in a row, obviously, we agree on that. But let's focus on the positives of the offense. We saw everybody on the offense excel this weekend, specifically the wide receivers, specifically Kajaya Holloway. How many times are we going to talk about him this year,
Every week that we have to. It's been him, Colin Chase, and JoJo Bermudez. These guys have easily emerged as the top targets in this game. Kajaya Holloway had 3 touchdowns, his season high. And the funniest part about all of this is if you remember preseason heading into this game, or heading into the season, season, the Temple wide receiver room was the biggest question mark for this team. No one had any sort of idea.
And it wasn't close.
No one had any sort of idea what they were going to look like. And now all of a sudden, it seems to be the most elite unit of this team. You have guys consistently and constantly playing extremely well for that offense.
And you can't forget pass catchers without mentioning Peter Clark, who has been garnering national attention. He is first in the nation in yards per route and run blocking grade among all tight ends. So that's something to keep an eye on. That puts him in categories with guys like George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Trey McBride. So that's really something to watch going forward for Peter Clark as this season goes on and maybe his pro career develops.
Yeah, it's been an absolutely electric season for Evan Simons so far, and the stats show us why. He currently has 21 touchdowns without a single interception. That's the most in all of the FBS, with UConn quarterback Joe Fignano next in line at 18. Simon is currently tied with North Texas quarterback Drew Mestemaker for touchdown passes in the American Conference, and he's now being recognized on the Manning Award watch list as one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. It's pretty amazing when you consider he wasn't even the clear-cut winner of the starting quarterback position coming out of camp in August.
But we're already up on our first break of the show, but don't go anywhere. We're not done taking a look at Saturday's win just yet.
When we return, Pat and I will break down some of the best plays from Saturday's action against Tulsa.
I'm Inside the Nest beat reporter Haley Smith. After the break, I'll take a look at the bowl odds for the Owls. Temple needs just one more win, but it's going to be a hard one. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Coach Keeler made it a team goal to make it to a bowl game this season. And with just 4 games left, the Owls are 1 win away from giving the new head coach his wish. Temple football is off to its best start in 6 years with 5 wins already under its belt. But no game is easy, which is something the Owls learned on Saturday in their victory against a Tulsa team that is yet to win a conference game.
Those on the road overtime wins, they can just build a lot of belief in a team. I think this team believes.
We're going into each week with a really good team mindset and just believe that we're going to win.
If Temple can pull off a win in one of their next 4 games, it will be the team's first bowl eligibility since 2019. Their last bowl game came in 2019 with a loss against UNC 55-13.
We know that this is a bowl eligible game. And, the guys, when I mentioned that this morning in the team meeting, you could see like they were already ahead of me.
In August, few thought of Temple as being good enough to be bowl eligible, let alone getting there in early November. But the Owls are just 1 win away with ECU at home.
We know they're a really good opponent, but at the same time, we have to have a lot of confidence that, we're a good football team.
I think we've been feeding off each other's energy. We're getting really close as a team. I think that's helping us a lot.
The Owls have the momentum on their side, but getting win number 6 won't be easy, even after ECU. Temple will face top teams in the conference, including Army, Tulane, and North Texas, to close out the season.
This team hasn't won more than 3 games in 5 years now. I want to go to a bowl. I want to do it right now. Like, not 2 years or 3 years from now. I want to do it now. I want to go win a bowl. And so
Saturday's game is set for a 2 p.m. kickoff. I'm Haley Smith, live at Ed Bergolson Hall. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Haley. It was an exciting week filled with some exciting plays, no doubt.
And as always, with exciting plays come highlights. So Xavier and I went through the tape and picked our favorite plays of the week from Saturday's rainy win over Tulsa. I'll kick us off. We've talked about these two. Evan Simon, Kajaya Holloway, top of your screen right there in the red circle. Run it. Simon reads the defense, launches downfield to Kajaya Holloway, back shoulder. Money. We've seen that all season long. It looked just like the throw that he made against Navy at the very end of the game. Look at this. Simon loves throwing to his right in the breadbasket for Kajaya Holloway. That's my play of the week. We'll actually have another look. Holloway routes out to the right side, right there in the corner. Beautiful ball from Evan Simon. Again, looked like me out there. I say this every week.
Yeah, for my play, we're looking at Hunter Smith. He's become a crazy. Check this out. Whoop! Look at that juke. He absolutely gets up out of there. He's down the sideline, but he needs to unhook the trailer a little bit. He gets hawked down by the safety Lentos
His
Jr.
NCAA speed rating is going to go
drop.
down.
It's going to drop for sure. But another angle, just showing the shiftiness and explosiveness out of Hunter Smith. He's eventually become the lightning to Jay Ducker's thunder, it seems, and he's really just taken this Temple offense to a whole another level of lethality. Another angle, I can't get enough of that, Pat.
No,
Just
you really
beautiful
can't.
Stuff. Crazy footwork. But that's my play of the week. We are up against another break, but don't go anywhere. We still have yet to hear from Coach Keeler and staff's Monday press conference following the win.
Xavier and I will also break down Temple's routes to success in Saturday's potential bowl-clinching matchup against East Carolina. Inside the Nest is back in 90. Welcome back to Inside the Nest.
On Monday, following the win over Tulsa, head coach Casey Keeler talked about how he and his team are looking forward and preparing for the ECU Pirates. There is the bowl eligibility issue, but when you listen to Keeler, you get the impression that getting win number 6 this weekend will not be easy, especially with ECU coming off of a bye week.
But, moving on, kids all know that the next one makes them bowl eligible. That's something we talked about from the first day I got here, about, what our goals were, and, getting into a bowl and then go winning a bowl was, a big deal. East Carolina's really good. You look at their losses, North Carolina State, BYU, and I think it was Tulane. Tempo team, very accurate quarterback, really good wide receivers, like their offensive line, complete team. They play really physical defense. So, as I told our kids, I said, they're every bit as good as us. And that's how we have to kind of look at things. We have to feel that we're every bit as good as them and, they're every bit as good as us. Really liked what I saw out on the field today. Again, I always say every obstacle is an opportunity. And from that Navy game on, the defense keeps on trying to find more ways to challenge themselves in terms of, playing fast, playing clean, playing hard. I walked off the field really impressed with what we did in a Monday practice. So, excited to get a really good East Carolina team here back at home. Be nice to get back in the link. They've been off 16 days. So it would be interesting to see if they come out fresh or they come out a little bit, they haven't played, because to me, the season is about getting into a rhythm. And I think sometimes it's really hard to get into a rhythm when you got 16 days off. Like when you look at the best teams in this league, you're thinking, the South Floridas, you're thinking the Memphises. Obviously Navy's having a great year. Tulane, you're thinking East Carolina. That's where they've gotten back to. And so, if we want to think that we're in the upper echelon of this league, if that's what we want to be, then that's who you have to beat those guys. You can get them at your place. So I think that's the mentality we have. We know they're a really good opponent.
Coach Keeler and his staff are leaving Tulsa behind and are scheming up a game plan for this Saturday's game against ECU. So it's only right that Xavier and I follow his lead.
That's right. We hit the books and cooked up what we believe are Temple's 4 best possible routes for success against the Pirates. Success route number 1, start fast. The offense absolutely has to come out fast. We've seen in a couple different games now this offense coming out to a slow start, and it always keeps games way closer than it needs to be. Temple has clearly displayed that they have both the offensive manpower and the ability to run an efficient offense, as seen in the second half of recent games. At this point, it's all about executing that first scripted drive and putting points on the board early. That's route number 1.
Route number 2, win the rushing battle. We've talked all season about Temple's success with the run game, and for good reason. The Owls' offense is tied for the 50th best rush offense in the NCAA, running for 173 yards per game. But we haven't talked too much about the Owls' rushing defense, which has struggled all year. Temple's defense allows 171 rush yards per game, ranking 101st out of 134 teams. Temple is 4-0 when out rushing its opponents this season, but ECU comes to town rushing for 161 yards per game, so Temple's defense could have its hands full.
Route number 3, take the points. Like the great Kenny Rogers once sang, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to take your points. The Owls have had a lot of recent struggles in the red zone with the ability to score in short distances. The run game often goes cold, and if they want any chance of success against the Pirates, they'll have to tighten up and just take your points where you can get them. I'd like to see more developed red zone passing as well. This wide receiver room is way too talented with guys like Kajaya Holloway to not try one of those one-on-one red zone matchups. Even still, 3 points is better than no points. If your offense isn't efficient enough to score touchdowns at times in the red zone, just take the points. And that's route number 3.
Our fourth and final route is something we've talked about endlessly this season. Do your job, or as Temple football puts it, do your 111. Casey Keeler has echoed this message all season long, mainly with the defense. Trying to do too much has allowed for teams to have lots of explosive plays. Just look at the Oklahoma or Georgia Tech game film. ECU ranks 14th in the entire nation in passing yards per game, throwing for 296. Offenses that rely on the pass typically produce lots of explosive plays, which Temple has struggled to stop. If Temple is able to slow down the ECU offense, the Owls could find themselves bowling by Saturday night.
The Owls have had a rough recent history against the Pirates. All 3 previous matchups resulted in a loss. In 2024, they were in North Carolina and lost 56-34. 2022 was slightly closer, with the Owls losing 49-46 at the Link. And finally, the 2021 year was the worst recent matchup for the Owls. They were outscored 45-3 in the loss against the Pirates, with a chance this Saturday to even the odds at least a little bit. So, Pat, when you see this ECU team and you see the things that they're really good at, we see the offensive firepower that they have on pretty much all fronts, the running game, the passing game with Anthony Smith Jr. What are some things that you think Temple really needs to look to accomplish against this team on Saturday?
Well, we talked about it in our routes to success. Stop the run.
Yeah.
This run defense this year has been very, very bad, to put it bluntly. You look at what happened against UMass in week 1. The worst team in Division I FBS college football.
Yeah.
UMass ran all over them. They really had their way. Oklahoma, a really average to bad rushing offense in the SEC, had their way with Temple. So it's a developing pattern. Even Charlotte. Temple lost the ground battle against Charlotte last week. That's a really concerning sign. Charlotte is not a good football team, and specifically, not a good offense. So they need to really hunker down, stack the box against ECU. But at the same time, if you're not careful, you'll get burned on the outside.
And that's the most important thing with this ECU offense. Right here, seeing an Anthony Smith Jr., these guys, they just get open often, and they're able to do so because their run game is so effective. If, like you said, if you decide to stack and crowd that box with your linebackers and your linemen, all of a sudden you have the middle of the field open. You have all types of crossing routes. You have all types of curls. It doesn't matter because they're going to get open. So I think essentially we know this ECU offense is going to get active and they're going to get moving. In my mind, it's all about, as we said earlier, again, Temple coming out somewhat quickly. They come out way too slow, way too often against these teams that they need to score early against. We've seen it was a 1-point score win against Tulsa because they weren't able to effectively score in the first half. So it's seriously and very important for them to come out in the first half just swinging.
Yeah, we talked about the ECU offense. Let's talk about how it's built. It's honestly kind of similar to Temple. They have 3 wide receivers that they really trust. You obviously mentioned Anthony Smith. They also have Yannick Smith, Brock Spalding, and tight end Javante Carter. But you look at Temple, kind of a similar structure. They have 3 wide receivers that they really trust. Only in the last couple of weeks has Kajia Holloway really established himself as the alpha in the Temple wide receiver room. But you look at the rest of the offense. You have JoJo Bermudez, who's a burner. You talk about Colin Chase, his after-the-catch ability. Peter Clark's versatility. We saw Jay Ducker catching the pass this weekend, something that we really haven't seen him do a ton this season. So it'll be really interesting to see how stylistically these 2 offenses go up against each other. And it should produce the most entertaining game of the year offensively for Temple and ECU.
And that's without even mentioning their quarterback, who's already almost throwing for 2,000 yards this season. It's going to be an electric matchup for sure.
Right. Haley talked about this earlier in the show, but it's worth repeating. Following Saturday's win over Tulsa, the Owls find themselves in a territory unseen since 2019, bowl contention. Temple needs to win only one of its next 4 games to be bowl eligible. But the Owls' next 4 opponents are no joke. A win this Saturday over ECU would lift the weight of the world off the Owls' shoulders. But without one, that weight would only multiply. Awaiting the Owls in their final 3 games are Army, Tulane, and North Texas. We're up on our 3rd break of the show, but it's already that time of the week. Our crew has done its homework on the Pirates and are ready to give some picks.
The prediction race has been tight this season. When we come back, Pat and I will finally have a chance to get even with the beat reporters. Inside the Nest is back in 90. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. With another game of ball on the way for the Owls, it means it's time for more predictions. And we are all bowl eligible, by the way. Everyone picked Temple to win last week. The reporters are still somehow ahead of Pat and me by one game, sitting at 8-0. We're behind at 7-1, but that is about to change. Pat, why don't you kick us off?
Sure thing, X-Man. I'll get us going. The buzz around campus about Temple football is palpable. After Saturday's win, Temple fans, alumni, and students are hungry for their first bowl appearance in 6 years. But as expectations among fans grow, so does Temple's competition in the American Conference. With ECU coming to town, the Owls are in for another tough game. This season, the Pirates' offense has been box office, tallying more than 400 yards of offense in 5 of their 6 games. And when an offense like that has a 16-day break, it makes dealing with a unit of that caliber that much scarier. I'll take the Pirates over the Owls in a close one, 27-24.
Yeah, I'm going to follow you there, Pat, and also take the Pirates over the Owls in this one. Simply put, the Pirates are just good at running the ball, and the Temple defense hasn't been very good at stopping the run. And on top of this, the Pirates have the top-ranked defense in the conference, allowing just about 17 points a game. If the Owls have any chance at winning this, it would have to come down to a shootout in my mind. I think the Temple defense will have its hands incredibly full this weekend, forcing them to lean on their offense. I have the Pirates taking this one 35-28. Haley, what do you think?
I'm going to have to disagree with you guys. I'm taking the Owls to win this one. They've won their last 2 games on the road, and their last loss was just by 1 point to the undefeated conference leader Navy. Evan Simon has completed 8 games without an interception and has been able to connect with anyone and everyone who's been able to get open. The defense has still had some issues with missed assignments, allowing Tulsa 17 points in the first half, so they'll definitely need to clean that up to have a chance against ECU. I think they have the momentum on their side, though, needed to carry them. 28-24 Temple.
Guys, coming into this game, the Pirates are averaging almost 300 passing yards and 160-plus rushing yards per game. Remember, the Owls gave up 296 yards in the air last week, so it's safe to say the Owls secondary will have its hands full this weekend. With that being said, ECU only has 1 win away from home and have yet to have any notable wins in the American. If the Owls can manage to control time of possession and win the turnover battle, which they have all season, I think they have a chance. I'm taking the Owls in a close one, 31-28. Those are our picks. We're coming up on another break, but when we return, I'll take us through an exciting Week 9 in the American and give you my top players of the week. That South Florida-Memphis game is worth sticking around for. We'll be back in 90 seconds. Welcome back. Week 9 was another electrifying week in the American, headlined by an instant classic between 18th-ranked South Florida and Memphis. But we can't forget matchups between Navy and FAU, North Texas and Charlotte, and Rice playing the only non-conference matchup this week. We start with Drew Mestermaker's record-breaking day against Charlotte. Early in the first quarter, he looks deep for Cameron Dorner and connects for the 41-yard touchdown. North Texas on top early. Fast forward to the fourth quarter. North Texas is up 34-20. Mestermaker finds Wyatt Young. Mestermaker sets a conference and school record with 608 passing yards. North Texas wins big, 54-20 in Charlotte. Now to the game of the week. Memphis versus South Florida. Late in the first quarter, Byron Brown takes the design run, breaks a tackle, and hurdles a defender for a 44-yard rushing touchdown to put the Bulls up. Late in the fourth quarter, with the Bulls up 5, Memphis quarterback Brendan Lewis finds Cortez Braham Jr. with an amazing back shoulder catch to put the Tigers up late. In the final seconds, with a chance to send the game to overtime, Nico Gramatica misses a 52-yard field goal, and the Tigers escape to win 34-31. Now on to Houston, where Rice took on UConn. In the second quarter, Quentin Jackson breaks a couple of tackles and takes it 73 yards to the house. Late second quarter, it's Jackson again, this time through the air. Jackson takes a 75-yard reception into the end zone for the score. Quentin Jackson ended the day with 4 touchdowns, and the Rice Owls beat UConn 37-34. Finally, it's FAU versus Navy. Early in the fourth quarter, FAU quarterback Caden Velkamp has his pass deflected and then picked off by Navy linebacker Coleman Colley. On the ensuing drive, Navy quarterback Blake Harbath keeps the option, breaks 2 tackles, and leaps into the end zone for a 19-yard touchdown run. Navy wins 42-32 to stay undefeated on the year. There are many game changers this week in the American, but 2 players stood out above the rest. Let's take a look. I'll start with my Offensive Player of the Week, North Texas quarterback Drew Mestemaker. He was exceptional in the win against Charlotte. He recorded 4 passing touchdowns with a whopping 608 yards in the air. As mentioned, that's an American Conference record. Now for my Defensive Player of the Week, Memphis linebacker Sam Brumfield. Brumfield recorded 13 total tackles and 9 solo tackles with 2.5 tackles for loss and 1 sack. He was an instrumental piece in a huge comeback win for the Tigers. After this week's games, there remains only 2 teams undefeated in the American, Navy and Tulane. The Owls remain in the mix, being one of only 5 teams with only 1 conference loss.
So, Miles, you obviously were just highlighting Drew Mestemaker and his historic game that he just had. Where do you see after that performance where he kind of ranks amongst quarterbacks in the American Conference now?
Mestemaker is surely establishing himself as a top passer in the American Conference. But when you have dynamic quarterbacks such as Byron Brown, Blake Horvath, and Evan Simon, who can get it done with their legs along with their arm, it's hard to put Mestemaker at the top of that list. But he's surely doing well with the ball in his hands, and he definitely will be a great quarterback for the Mean Green in the future.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that we're hearing Evan Simon in that conversation. Before the year, if you said that, you'd think you're nuts. But let's move on to the coaches. We're approaching award season in the American Conference. Miles, if you had to pick one right now, who's your American Conference Coach of the Year?
When you think of coaches in the American, it's easy to think about USF's coach Alex Golash, what he's doing with USF and the notable wins against Florida and Boise State. Navy's head coach Brian Newberry comes to mind as well with the undefeated season. But if I had to pick coach of the year so far, I'm going with Temple head football coach Casey Keeler. What he's doing with Temple football, bringing a team that was at the bottom of the FBS a year ago and making them competitive in the American has simply been impressive. And he would be my pick for head coach of the year in American.
Gotcha. And with Miles, you've been mentioning all these teams forming at the top of the American, that little upper echelon. What do you think will be the title conference matchup?
The race to the top of the conference has been very tight all season long, and especially with the new playoff format having 5 conference winners, it has been bigger than ever before. With that being said, my 2 teams at the top of the conference will be Memphis and North Texas, and I believe Memphis will take it all.
Ooh.
Yeah, and we'll do a player of the year. If you had to pick the quarterbacks that you mentioned, pick between Byron Brown, Drew Mestemaker, and Evan Simon. Those 3, say they're player of the year finalists. Which one are you picking?
I'm going with Evan Simon.
Ooh, interesting.
Really, really, really good pick. But thanks, Miles. We're already up on our final break of the show. This weekend in college football was jam-packed with upsets, firings, and shifts in the rankings.
When we return, we'll be getting into our Pulse Check, our updates on the local college football landscape. Stick around.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. It's our last block of the show, so you know what that means, X-Men.
I sure do, Pat. It's time for the Pulse Check, the weekly segment where Pat and I take a look at the college football landscape around the nation. So, Pat, to start, we have to, again, another coach is firing.
It's getting ridiculous.
It's getting ridiculous. Are we the harbingers of firings? I mean, it seems like every time we talk about a football coach getting fired, a following huge name head coach gets fired. And this week, it was LSU's Brian Kelly. He got the can.
Yeah, the winningest coach in college football at the time. Obviously left Notre Dame for LSU. It's not shocking to see that they fired him. Each of the last 3 head coaches at LSU had all won national championships in their first 4 years. Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron. So they clearly have a standard that you need to win and win quickly. Brian Kelly, obviously not living up to that standard.
No.
I'm not a fan of the guy, so I'm not too upset to see him go. And I know LSU fans are just as happy as I am, if not more happy.
Yeah, I bet they are. And moving on from that, we have to now mention Miami breaking back into the top 10 after they destroyed Stanford. You can only help to feel a little bit for Andrew Luck there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they destroyed Stanford and they worked their way back into the top 10. People had a lot of question marks about this team because they fell off from that top 10 seed, and now they're suddenly back after destroying a very wishy-washy team in Stanford. It's kind of questionable.
Those uniforms they're wearing are terrible. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that up. I have no idea what they were going for, but regardless. It's a really nice bounce-back win for Mario Cristobal and the Canes. It's nice to see Carson Beck get back to himself and develop a rhythm offensively. You do feel for Andrew Luck, really nice guy. Unfortunately, Stanford stinks, so it's not surprising to see this result.
Yeah, and another top 10 team now we have to talk about is Vanderbilt. They are no longer the doormat of the SEC. They used to just be the guys at the bottom that would just hang out, kind of fill that little void. And now they're at the top of the division. These guys refuse to quit. They refuse to die. Nashville wants to rock, Pat.
Yeah, you have to be really happy for Clark Lee and Diego Pavia. Before the year, Diego Pavia sat down with Paul Feinbaum of ESPN, and he asked him a question. He said, how do you think this season's going to go? Diego Pavia said, we're going to win every game. And Paul Feinbaum asked him if he was joking, and he said, do you see anybody cracking jokes?
Yeah.
And what have they done? They've won every single game except for Alabama. Vanderbilt is a bona fide college football playoff contender, and they could maybe win the SEC. If you told me that even 2 years ago, I'd say you were a lunatic. So it's really cool. Shout out to Clark Lee.
Yeah, the teams that we're seeing rise just are teams that we are not seeing that be that good recently. Mizzou, Indiana.
Right.
We were just talking about, not Miami, excuse me,
Well,
Georgia
Miami
Tech.
was down for a really long time.
They were down.
as
Georgia
well.
Tech is currently undefeated.
Yeah.
Navy is currently undefeated. There are so many teams that are really in that top 25 that are just putting it together, and it's teams that we aren't normally used to seeing because with all these firings, Penn State's down, LSU's down, Clemson's probably going to be down soon. It's really exciting to see.
And another team that we didn't mention is Virginia. You can see at the bottom of your screen there on the ticker that our wonderful producers put together. You can see that Virginia ranked 17th. The last time they were ranked, Xavier, 2019, they played in the Orange Bowl against Florida. Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts were on that Florida team. But you look at college football, the NIL era, there's a lot of negative things that you could say about it, and I understand the criticism. But you'll never see as much parity, teams becoming good, rising through the ranks the way that you are now in college football. And it's honestly a lot more fun. You saw Indiana play in a playoff game last year. You see them number 2 in the country right now. So college football right now, there's a lot of issues with the NIL, but it has never been more fun than it is right now.
So exciting.
But unfortunately, that's all we have for you on this episode of Inside the Nest. As always, thank you for tuning in, and be sure to tune in next week for our coverage of this week's game against ECU.
Don't forget to also tune into this week's edition of Owl Sports Update this Thursday at noon on CUTV. We've got extensive coverage of men's and women's basketball for the first time this season, as hoop season is just days away, Pat. As always, I'm Xavier Adams, he's Pat Dallahan, and we'll see you all next week.